Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Welcome
Luigi.
to another, how are you? Welcome to another session of the Ibarra Exchange, here with Alejandro Ibarra, psychologist specialized in OCD and telehealth, joining us from Seville, Spain, and myself, Luigi Pesce Ibarra, a PhD neuroscientist from New York. How are you, Alejandro?
Hi, Luigi. How are you doing? How are you doing? Fine, fine. Another episode about Ibarra Exchange, and today we're going to talk about HOCD, homosexual OCD, a very controversial topic and subtype in OCD.
Homosexual obsessive compulsive disorder. Happy 4th of July, by the way. It was yesterday here in America. There were a lot of fireworks going on. Speaking about fireworks, this is a topic that actually creates a lot of fireworks, creates a lot of controversies and stigma, and it's perfectly understandable. There is a intersection between a lot of myths and stigmas. So you have mental health, homosexuality, and obsessive compulsive disorder, which is, so you have three taboos all in one. So let's talk a little bit about this homosexual obsessive compulsive disorder. Let's talk about OCD. What are the specific symptoms of this subspecialized disorder of OCD? What makes it so unique and different from the others?
Yes, homosexual OCD, people who suffer these subtypes of OCD are very preoccupied by his and her sexuality and what if they are really gay or lesbian. Okay, the typical symptoms and the typical question that is in their mind are, what if I'm gay, what if I'm lesbian, or what if I'm really feel attractive by another person that by my same sex. So that is a very misconception that are surrounding and that are around the OCD and the HOCD. So people that suffer these subtypes of OCD feel very alone, okay, very alone, very alone, and feel very and too much anxiety, okay? So after the urge and after the thoughts, they have to do a compulsions that most common compulsions are mental, are not ritual motors. Most common compulsions are avoidance, for example, or ritualizing into their mind. That is what there is a pure, okay, because people doesn't have compulsions, physical or motor rituals. People that suffer these subtypes of OCD, their compulsions are mental. Everything is happened into the mind or into the head of the people that suffer this kind of OCD.
So you're saying that in obsessive compulsive disorder, in this specific category of HOCD, there is not that much of the compulsion side of it. It's more of an obsessive. If so, like, what makes it then obsessive compulsive? Because when you hear about someone having obsessive compulsive disorder, you will think that there's an action that pursues the thought. You're saying that that action is mental, but shouldn't be accompanied of a motor behavior, of an actual action that starts and stops in order to satisfy and bring down the stress caused by that disruptive thought?
Definitely, that is a misconception, and that is a wrong idea about the OCD, because people think an OCD community and also the scientific people that work with OCD, for example, psychologists, psychiatrists, medical doctor, thinks that compulsions are just ritual motors, and it's not. Compulsions are everything that suffer, do, or think to reduce the stress or the anxiety that feels after the obsession. Obsessions can be thoughts, can be imagined, can be urge, can be sensations, can be whatever that happen into the mind that the person cannot control. Okay, that is a problem. The person is overthinking and they are not controlling everything that's going and happen on her and his mind. So after that, the people make to or do a compulsion. And this kind of compulsion, in pure, in homosexual OCD, is into her or his mind.
So let's give a sense of perspective and let's talk a little bit of context. When I studied neurological disorders, specifically Parkinson's, there is definitely that what we call the motor extra movement, the trembling and the inability to stop them. But there's also what they call as an avoidance of certain motor actions that they initiate, but they don't materialize, they don't follow through, which is a very common, is like a person with Parkinson's waking up in the middle of the night, going to the bathroom and then getting stuck in front of the bathroom doors and not being able to actually go to the bathroom, even though they've made it all the way there. So besides the extra additional motor of the trembling, there's the avoidance, there's the inhibition of an action. You can think that also as a motor disorder. So I think in this case, with HOCD, there is the motor component, the compulsion of avoiding an action. So as I heard you say, avoiding an action in these people could be stop having sexual relations with their partners. And if it is the opposite, if it is an extra motor compulsion that they do, what would that be? Would it be masturbating? Would it be checking porn online? Would it be, researching of what is happening?
Exactly. That's a really good point. A really good point that can confuse all the OCD community and all the population. The point is that compulsions are not always ritual motors. Compulsions maybe in many cases we have in our practice office here in PSINCO Alejandro Ibarra in Seville and through the world, we have many clients that feel many sensations. So OCD is not a thought, OCD is not a just imagine. OCD can be sensation that people that suffer this kind of subtypes feel. So avoidance definitely is one of the compulsions, because compulsions are not always that people do. For example, checking an oven or checking a door or clock or close a clock or whatever. No, compulsion is more than that. Compulsions in many times, in many cases, are mental. So avoidance is one of that, because compulsion is that people do and don't do and avoid to don't feel the anxiety that creates the thoughts or whatever that come into their mind. So definitely avoidance is one of the most common compulsions that is present and that is in PURO. So not just in HOCD, also in ROCD, in pedophile OCD, in many subtypes in OCD.
In relations OCD and pedophile OCD, which are other subtypes of this disorder, again, we will be in HOCD, the framework is the same, the basis is the same, the constant thought process, sensation leading into action. Sometimes this action could be an inhibition or could be an extra action, such as self-pleasure. But in theory and in practice, the only thing that's different is that instead of what people think of OCD is, whether there's the symmetry, the overchecking, the constant counting and recounting and reevaluating everything that takes a lot of hours of their time and is stressed, and it becomes sort of a maze and a personal prison. What makes it different is that in HOCD, the obsession is within their own sexuality, within their own change in sexuality to homosexuality, and they constantly overanalyze and anxiety that brings with it. How frequent is this subtype of OCD in your practice in Spain? How many patients do you see a week?
Yes, in HOCD is the one of the subtypes that we see most commonly in our practice office around the world. In my practice office, the first kind of subtypes in OCD is HOCD. The second one is ROCD, and the third one is pedophile and harm OCD. So maybe we have patients and clients that suffer with these subtypes through the world, in all the world, in Seville, in front of the north of Spain, into also in Latin America. So the point is that these people are very alone. They are suffering alone because nobody understands what happened into their mind. When they go to the doctor or to the psychologist or to the psychiatrist, they are infradiagnosis because they are with wrong diagnosis. Because it's not common that psychologists, if not specialized in OCD, put into the right or the right treatment to the OCD, to the HOCD. So it's a very big problem. So what happened in our practice office, that through my YouTube channel, they feel very identified with what happened into their mind. So the psychologists feel or they are put all the information that happened into my mind. So I don't want to be a gay. My problem is, what if I'm gay? What if I'm lesbian? What happened with with the situation where I go to hanging out, or where I go to a bar or any place that I see or that I look a handsome man or a handsome girl? What happened into my mind? Why I feel very anxiety? What I feel that I'm not fine. I'm not okay. So definitely, one of the subtypes that are most common in our practice office is HOCD. Many cases, maybe hundreds of cases in our practice office.
And it could be across the lifespan. It could be adolescents, adults, older adults, 50s, 60s.
Yes, around since 12 or 13 years old until 60 years old, men and girls.
Is there any difference between genders? Like, are men that suffer HOCD, do they have a harder time with the anxiety and the struggling than women suffering HOCD? Like, is a straight man that all of a sudden start suffering from this condition and start believing that they're gay or homosexual, which nothing wrong with it.
Exactly, no difference.
No difference. I see. It weighs the same. How about the cognitive behavioral therapy that you perform? You're saying we spoke a lot about ERP. Would this treatment be treated with ERP? And if so, do they respond the same way? How can this HOCD be treated in order to reduce the anxiety?
Definitely the unique, the only one, and the best or the right treatment is CBT, and specific the ERP, exposure with response prevention, because it's a technique that helps to the sufferer, to the people, to face to their fears. So that is the one of the advantage in ERP, because the first step in the treatment is to face with the thoughts. What if I'm gay? What if I'm lesbian? What if I'm bisexual? So we start the program, the right treatment with ERP, with thoughts. And after that, we are creating something like brain muscle, like go to a gym, exactly the same, but with the mind. So after the ERP with thoughts, we work with the client with imaginal situation, like go to a bar and look or watch a boy or a girl, handsome or pretty. So the sufferer have to keep the imagine into the mind around 30 minutes. That is exposure or imaginal exposure. So they have to feel the anxiety, not fear to the anxiety, feel the anxiety and not do the compulsion, not avoidance, not ritualizing, not dialogue or not talk into the mind. They have to stop the compulsion. All the part of the equation is exposure with response prevention. So in my experience in PSINCO Alejandro Ibarra and in my practice office have had many cases with successful and story of successful, then people can check this into my website, okay, alejandroibarra.com, okay? So that is very important into the YouTube channel, Psychologist Alejandro Ibarra. So we have many videos that people can identify with what happened with the OCD symptoms.
This is an exceptional, controversial, heavy-loaded topic. If you would have asked me a month ago about, you know, if I would have met somebody that is an older man who is from very conservative, whether it's religious-based, political-based, whether it's Orthodox Jewish, Christian, evangelical, Orthodox Catholic, Muslim, if they would have told me that they're suffering stress because they start having these uncontrollable thoughts that they are visualizing and feeling attractive to the same gender that they never done before, and it's creating an anxiety that is causing this cycle that they cannot get out, this maze that they don't find the exit of. I would have never guessed, even with my training, that it's anything related with obsessive compulsive disorder. So I don't imagine a medical doctor or even a psychiatrist or a psychologist or your primary physician, you know, hitting with the right spot and saying this anxiety of you might becoming homosexual despite of what you want. And even, again, there's nothing wrong, but it's anxiety provoking that comes with that. It is really hard to point them in the right direction to lead to a well-known psychologist like you who specializes in this condition. I also didn't know how frequent it was. And it's when you're saying that it's underdiagnosed, the number of cases.
Exactly.
And even though it is underdiagnosed, the number of cases are still a big part of the people you see in your practice. And another thing that I find fascinating is that there is so much variability and heterogeneity with this specialty, like men, women across the lifespan. Some avoid, some internalize the rituals, some, you know, cannot even continue to have sex with their partners. They avoid social gatherings pre-pandemic when they didn't, you know, in order to not see people that have of the same gender. So those thoughts that didn't come. But it is remarkable that ERP, that your cognitive behavioral therapy can treat all types, can treat everything. That is objectively the clinical framework that you use to treat any type of OCD, and it is successful, and it maintains the same recovery rate in this subtype as well?
Exactly, definitely. ERP is a very powerful technique that not just to HOCD, it's not depend of the content of the obsessions, depend of the obsessive compulsive disorder, because ERP is a gold standard treatment to all the variety or all the kind of OCD. So that is a very interesting point, because when people come into my practice office, they say that they were with many psychologists that they don't know what happened with him or her. Misconception that is around the HOCD, because the psychologists and all the community think that if we don't see the rituals motor, if we don't check, or you don't wash your hands, or you don't check the oven, it's not OCD. No, that is a big mistake, because OCD is not only wash your hands. OCD is more than wash your hands. And there is many patient clients that are suffering into or through the world that don't have washing your hands, that don't have ritual motors. So they are suffering with OCD.
The human mind, we are experts of subconsciously and unconsciously simplifying everything. So OCD is wash hands, over-checking, obsessed with cleanness, but I've never guessed the puzzle. And I'm overwhelmed it's almost like negligent, the lack of information. Exactly. That you see, both scientific, you know, despite a couple of professors that have like you, and that they have videos in YouTube, like very short, sort of briefly touching on this topic. It's amazing the overwhelmingly amount of lack of knowledge, of ignorance that is within the community. When I studied neuroscience, I was always frustrated that in order to get to the effective neuroscience part, subcortical areas. There's not that many studies at all that match the novel brain imaging techniques with the studies relating sexual orientation, gender, changes in gender, because of the stigma that there is. There's neuroscience and sexuality don't go well together. I've seen on television neuroscientists that actually complain because the taboo reverted and actually keeping us from doing science. But one thing that I'm really like confused is in the previous video, in the one we spoke in Spanish, you mentioned that, okay, some have inhibition, avoidance, no sexual relations, no social gatherings. Some of them ritualize their compulsions in their minds, okay? The never ending, for the most part, it seems never ending. It feels never ending. But others do have masturbation as a common compulsive, okay? And I'm guessing masturbating, that's like a straight man or a straight woman, they start masturbating, watching photos or videos of their same gender, something that they never done before. How is this possible? How, at least for men, how can they have an erection? Okay, how can they have physiological symptoms accompanied with the OCD?
Yes, that is a good question, and part of all the equation what happening to the mind and all the process in HOCD. Masturbation is a common physical compulsion because him or her do like a proof. They are always searching a proof that they are not a homosexual. So what happened into their mind? They are two concepts and two phenomena that happen into the HOCD and the all OCD with content sexual. The first one is groinal response. Groinal response is everything that happens into the genitals in men and girls, like warm up. Okay, so they feel that when they are warming up is a proof. But what happened? Groinal response is a symptom. It's not a proof. It doesn't prove anything. It's just a symptom because in HOCD, not just the thoughts, not just the urge, not just the imaginal, happen that sensation. So they are feeling some sensation with groinal response. So they are warming up, or what happened? What is happened down? That happened is that warming up. So there is involuntary. So that phenomenon create confusion with the people that suffer with OCD, with the HOCD. So that is a symptom. With ERP is wonderful because we create a environment and a specific exposure with this sensation to disconnect and to the people don't feel the scary, or don't feel the anxiety, or don't feel the fear to feel this. So after that, they don't feel the groinal response. And the another concept, and the another point is that the brain has a sexual and accelerator. So all the brain is made like sexual and brain accelerator. So if we have imagine that, for example, with this pen, so many people can say, okay, that is a pain. So the people that is with accelerator sexual very fast, they think that there is a genital. Okay, so depends of the accelerator and brake sexual that is into each person. So definitely groinal response happen, and that is a symptoms, and ERP can get better and get improved all the process that happen into HOCD.
I just find it fascinating that with groinal response, GR, and with these brain accelerators that happen in the subtype of OCD, of homosexual OCD, they are able, or at least in men, have an involuntary erection that leads them to either masturbation, have sex, ejaculating. And like a final question is, in this specific case of a man, is it pleasurable? Like having the erection, sex, or masturbation, and then ejaculating? Do they feel pleasure in this process?
Yeah, yes, of course, but they don't feel pleasure. They feel fear. They watch porn, for example, that is a compulsion. They check about their sensation with checking porn, with watch porn. So after that, they masturbate. So, but they feel very anxiety. They feel very scary. They feel with fear. That is not normal. That is HOCD because people are suffering. It's not normal. It's not normal because people feel very anxiety, high level of anxiety. So the goal with therapy is to reduce the stress. Don't watch porn to reduce the anxiety and don't do the masturbation to reduce. Watch porn and watch or do the masturbation to feel free and to feel pleasure, but it's not the case. In HOCD, they are always searching a proof that is not a proof. There is a wrong, there is a big mistake. Because in HOCD, it doesn't prove anything.
I guess we're going to leave it there, but I guess that's for the moment, if we don't follow up in this conversation, I guess that's the difference between a man or a woman that, because it is normal that people change their sexual orientation throughout their lifespan. It can happen, it can go straight bisexual, homosexual, and then back again, or vice versa. But I guess what makes it different between a person changing their sexual orientation involuntarily and HOCD is overwhelmingly stress, anxiety, repetition, guilting that they feel.
The doubt, exactly. All the symptoms, the thoughts they imagine, they feel very scary, they feel very anxiety. All the equation in OCD, the guilty, the doubt, they cannot stop the mind because they are overthinking and feel very scary and feel very anxiety. That is and very distressed. That is the point.
Right. It's a full disclaimer. They don't go to your practice to say, I want to stop being gay or stop having these homosexual thoughts. I just want to reduce the anxiety and the stress that comes with them. And eventually it will lead out to back again to their life before.
They want to recover and they don't want to have this kind of thoughts or imagine. They said to me, Alejandro, I know my sexuality, but I cannot stop my mind. I'd always think or I'd always feel when I hanging out, when I go to a bar or a mall or a shopping center, I watch or I look at hands or a pretty girl, so I feel very bad. I feel with anxiety. So I don't want to feel that because I have my husband, I have my wife or whatever.
And we will be talking next week of that it can happen also to straight individuals, and these disruptive thoughts and imagings and rituals can also happen to straight individuals married. They have a loved one, but it can, okay? And definitely something to continue having the conversation. Thank you so much for another episode of the Ibarra Exchange, Alejandro. Thank you for another exchange of ideas.
Thank you, Luigi. See you next Sunday with more information and to continue to spread, to raise awareness in all OCD community and population. See you next Sunday.
Absolutely. Psychoeducation is the key. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Luigi.